All right, ready to dive in. This time, we're going way back to the 1950s, to a small town in Wisconsin, Plainfield.
Ah,
That's
Plainfield.
where a name, Ed Gein, became
Oh.
synonymous with horror.
Yeah, really a turning point for true crime in America.
Yeah.
Small town, everyone knows everyone, trusted their neighbors.
Trusted Ed Gein, the local handyman.
No one had a clue about the darkness hiding, right there under the surface.
Almost like he shattered that small town's safety, forced everyone to face the fact that evil could be anyone, even someone you thought you knew.
Absolutely.
And even before we get to that farmhouse, you've got these whispers, these disappearances hanging over Plainfield.
Right.
Like Mary Hogan, gone, vanished from a tavern. And there's Evelyn Hartley, only 15 years old, disappears without a trace.
Just gone.
And at the time, they weren't definitively linked to Gein, but you can't deny that the unease, that fear, just building in the community.
It really set the stage, didn't it, for what was to come.
Then, November 1957, Bernice Warden, a hardware store owner, she disappears.
Ah, yes, Bernice.
And her son, Frank, he suspects Gein almost right away.
He did. Right away.
All because of a receipt for antifreeze.
Last one Bernice wrote. And guess who it was for?
Ed Gein.
Ed Gein.
It's like straight out of a nightmare. Frank, he takes the sheriff out to Gein's farm, and, well, that's when everything changes.
It does.
What did they find when they got?
You got to picture this. A rundown farmhouse, almost pitch black. You can practically smell the decay in the air.
Okay.
Sheriff and Frank, they push their way inside.
What?
It's piles of trash, grime everywhere, shadows. They need flashlights just to see where they're going.
Oh, it sounds awful. Did they find Bernice?
In the summer kitchen,
Oh, God.
hanging upside down, like a deer dressed out, mutilated. I can't imagine what those officers must have felt seeing that.
It's hard to even think about.
That was just the beginning.
The beginning. This is where the House of Horrors really starts, right?
This is where it gets really bad. We're talking about the things made from human skin.
The skin.
9 masks, 9 human faces, peeled from the skulls. Some were dried, some oiled, some still had makeup on. The eye holes were cut out, empty sockets, just staring.
I don't even know what to say. What would make someone do something like that?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? It's about possession, keeping these women close, but in such a twisted way. And you have to remember Gein's obsession with his mother, Augusta.
Right. She had passed away years before.
Some experts believe those masks, that was him trying to recreate her face, to bring her back in some way.
So disturbing. And there were other things, right? Besides the masks.
Oh, yeah. Human stubbles, just sitting around the house like they were normal, like something you'd use every day. Chillin'.
It's like he didn't see them as anything out of the ordinary.
That's what's so terrifying, this normalization of the macabre, this blurring of life and death all inside his mind. And it wasn't just bowls. There was a chair, an actual chair, upholstered in human skin.
A chair made of skin, like something you'd sit on.
Yeah, covered, like completely covered in the skin of his victims. This goes way beyond just morbid curiosity.
Right.
This is a total break from reality. This blurring of the lines between him and the women he'd killed. He wasn't just collecting these things. He was trying to make a world where these women, or at least parts of them, were always there.
God, that's awful. And what about the lampshades? Weren't those made of skin too?
Yeah, placed all around the house. It all added to this grotesque, this horrifying atmosphere.
How did this go on for so long?
Yeah.
Did no one suspect anything?
And he was good at hiding it. Seemed harmless, helpful even.
Right, he was the handyman.
But there were rumors. People talked about strange smells coming from the farm, late-night trips to the cemetery.
But no one really put it together.
So, like, they didn't want to see it? Or maybe they just couldn't believe it.
And one of the most disturbing things they found was that box. Right? The one with 9 vulvas in it.
Oh, God. Yeah.
It wasn't just random body parts. It was like a collection, all planned out.
It was systematic. This wasn't just, bloodlust or sadism. This was something else. He needed control. He had to possess these women.
Like he is trying to create his own world, his own rules.
Exactly.
You keep mentioning Gein's mother. What role did she play in all of this?
Augusta Gein, she was very religious, instilled this deep sense of shame in Ed, especially about sex.
So she kept him isolated, away from other people.
Totally. She taught him that women were evil,
Oh, wow.
instruments of sin.
So it's like she created the monster he became.
You can't just blame her for what he did. But her influence, her view of the world, it definitely shaped him.
Did he ever confess after they found all of this?
He did, but he was so detached, so matter-of-fact about it all. He called his grave robbing collecting.
Collecting.
Yeah, driven by scientific curiosity.
Scientific curiosity.
He even called the bodies dolls, said they comforted him.
It's hard to imagine being that detached from reality.
Well, that's where the schizophrenia diagnosis comes in.
Right, you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
But for our listener, can you explain what that is and how it might have, affected Gein?
So schizophrenia, it's a mental illness, really complex, affects how a person thinks, feels, behaves. People with schizophrenia, they can lose touch with reality. And it can be really scary for them and for everyone around them. And in Gein's case, it seems like his schizophrenia combined with, his childhood and his isolation, it created this terrifying break, this obsession with his mother, not being able to tell the difference between the living and the dead. It all just spiraled.
So his scientific curiosity, wanting to feel close to his mother, all of it was part of his illness.
It's hard to say for sure, but it seems likely. And it just shows how devastating untreated mental illness can be, both for the person and for everyone else.
It's a good point. It's easy to just focus on the horror of what he did.
Right.
But he was a human being.
Right.
And he clearly needed help.
He did. And, we can't excuse what he did, but understanding his mental state, it helps us see past the monster and see the tragedy.
So what happened after he was arrested? Did he go to trial?
Oh, yeah. They found him guilty of murder, but they also ruled him not guilty by reason of insanity. So instead of prison, he went to a mental institution.
That must have been controversial. I mean, everyone was so horrified by what he did.
Oh, totally. People couldn't believe that this quiet handyman, this guy they thought they knew was capable of such things.
And the schizophrenia diagnosis, I bet that didn't help.
Not at the time. It was a new concept for a lot of people. There was a lot of fear and misunderstanding.
So he kind of became this symbol of everything people didn't understand about mental illness.
He did, and his case, it really sparked a conversation about, criminal responsibility and the role of mental health in the justice system.
It was a conversation we're still having today. While he was in the institution, did they ever connect him to those other disappearances? Mary Hogan and Evelyn Harley?
Not definitively, no. But they did find more bones on his property.
Oh, God.
So there might have been even more victims than they originally thought.
That's terrifying. What happened to the farmhouse?
It burned down the year after Gein was arrested. Some people think it was arson.
Like the town wanted to erase it?
Yeah, like they wanted to get rid of this symbol of this horrible thing that had happened.
But even though the house is gone, his story hasn't gone away, has it?
No, not at all. It's become part of our culture. You see it in movies, books, even music. It's like this dark folk tale.
And you mentioned that he inspired artists and writers.
Yeah, for sure. Like Robert Bloch, the guy who wrote Psycho, he was living in Wisconsin when all this happened, and it really got to him. He based Norman Bates, the motel owner with the mommy issues, on Ed Gein.
Wow.
And then, of course, Hitchcock's Psycho. That movie really cemented Gein's place in horror history.
It's amazing how someone who was so troubled could have such a huge impact.
It's because his story, it touches on something deep inside us, something that scares us.
That darkness that's inside all of us.
Exactly. And that's why people are still so fascinated by him, even today.
It's not just about the gory details, although those are definitely part of it. It's about trying to understand why. Why would someone do these things?
We want to believe that good and evil, sanity and insanity are completely separate.
Right.
But Gein, he blurs those lines. He wasn't some monster hiding in the shadows. He was a normal guy living a normal life.
And that's the scary part.
Yeah.
That it could be anyone.
It could. And it makes you wonder, what if it had been someone you knew?
It makes you think about the choices we make, the people we surround ourselves with, the things that can push someone over the edge.
It does. But it also makes you think about mental health and how important it is to understand it and to get help when you need it.
Absolutely. It's not a weakness to ask for help. It's a sign of strength.
It is. And hopefully Gein's story, for all its horror, it can teach us something about ourselves and about how we can create a better world.
Okay, so before we wrap this up, let's really consider the impact of all of this.
Yeah.
Ed Gein. The name itself, it brings up these images of horror, a house full of unimaginable things.
Yeah.
But beyond that, what's his legacy?
It's complicated. On the one hand, he's this icon of horror. He's in movies, books, everything. He's this reminder that evil can be anywhere, that anyone can lose their mind.
Right.
But on the other hand, his case, it really brought mental illness into the spotlight. It made people start talking about it, about how we need to understand it better, how we need to treat it better.
It's a reminder that we all have a responsibility to look out for each other, to recognize when someone's struggling, and to offer help.
Exactly. Gin's story, it's tragic. It's a reminder of what can happen when mental illness isn't treated. But it's also a call to action. It's a plea for empathy, for compassion.
So, as we finish this deep dive into the world of Ed Gein, I want to leave you with this. His story isn't just about horror. It's about us, about what we're capable of, both good and bad. It's a story that makes us look deeper, to confront the darkest parts of ourselves, and to try to create a world where understanding and compassion are stronger than fear and judgment. I keep thinking about, what if things had been different? What if people had been nicer to him? If he had gotten the help he needed, could any of this have been prevented?
That's the question, isn't it? You can't change the past.
No.
But you can learn from it. Gein's story, it's a reminder that, we got to look out for each other. Watch for those signs, when someone's not doing well.
Yeah.
Offer support. Be kind.
It's so easy to see this case, see Gein as this monster.
Right.
Like, he's totally different from us.
Yeah,
But we all have that darkness inside, don't we?
I think so.
It's about the choices we make, the people we have in our lives.
Yeah.
The things that can push us over the edge.
It's a good reminder that we're not that different, and that we need to be more aware, more compassionate.
So this deep dive, it's been heavy, but I think the thing to remember is that Ed Gein's story isn't just about horror.
Right.
It's a reflection of all of us. It's about our potential for both good and evil.
And it's about making the choice to do better, to be better.
To choose understanding,
Yeah.
Choose compassion instead of fear and judgment.
That's what we should take away from all of this.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into the world of Ed Gein. Thanks for joining us. And, remember, there's always more to learn, more to explore.
Keep diving deep, everyone, and keep those lights on.